Hi everybody, Mr. Simmer here. So welcome back to Hobo's Hollow on my standard FSN farm here. So as you can see, we're here at the start of fall, and I'm going to be harvesting today, but in the meantime I've been spending a little bit of time just getting all the operations going. I was actually in yesterday working with the cow barn and stuff and getting that moving. It had actually run out of hay, so I had missed a little bit of that, but luckily it had not yet run out of food, so it had gotten down to about 83,000. So you can see now we're at 105, so it's slowly climbing back up. It had been down to about the midpoint, because basically it's 173,500 liters is full capacity of that barn. So that's basically what it sits at. So I think it's actually 174, but just the way it operates, that's the number you always see. And as I had expected, I think I had mentioned it at one or two episodes ago, the consumption went down from 4,500 to 3,500. So it absolutely uses less material when it's full. So at this point I'm basically consuming 1,000 extra liters of stuff again than what I normally would have been had I not run out of hay. So I've got to wait whatever it is, 2-3 days until we get ourselves up there. Actually, now I am going to have to move this because I'm going to need the truck to work with the trailer up there and the harvester, obviously, to get the crop off the field. So our wheat's been ready for a while. It did get ready in June. So when I was on here yesterday in August, I was like, yep, it's here. And I just had enough going on that I was saying, well, I'll wait till today. Unfortunately, I do have time today, but as seems to be the reality, no matter what I do because of real-time servers, I am working in the dark. I'm going to be able to move the server up a little bit at some point, but it's going to take a bit of time, and it's still just going to be... I cannot... did I get it? I think I did. I think I finally did. It's always hard to get in there. It's just like a very tight... Alright. That's much better. Nice and bright now. So, it's only behind, I think, about an hour and a half, because when I got on, I would have wanted to move it to 4 a.m., and I've really just gotten some silage over to the BGA. It's basically been feeding the BGA. So, let's be clear. Alright, straw swath is enabled, because that is what I want to do. I just want to really jam up myself on straw. But there we go. Second harvest off the field. So I suppose in a way, another milestone. It's no longer the first time we've touched the field. It's now the first time we are doing things again on the field. After this, now it just becomes kind of old hat that we are working and going from there. So I'll just go ahead while I'm here, set my GPS so that it's going to have a track eventually. Once again, I don't tend to worry about it when I do the two down here. So actually, I'm going to need my truck on the... well, no, I'll use the big tractor on the forage wagon. I was going to say I'm going to need my truck on the forage wagon, but no. So when I run these two rows, what I need to do is then pick up the straw, because of beware of straw, so that I don't basically start sucking it up into my header and losing it. This looks like a lot of straw. I swore oats always generated more, but I don't know why, but this just seems like a giant wide pile. But whatever it's gonna be, it'll be, and that'll be fine. So we're getting a little bit of a weird kind of striation there on the map as it goes from kind of the higher yield because of the lime and the pH values. Until you relime, you're always slightly losing a little bit of yield that you normally would have gotten. So let's see. Alright, I'm gonna pick this up and then hopefully, because what I did the first time was I kind of cut in, but then what I determined is I couldn't really use the tractor to pick that up too cleanly without running into the crop, and I think I had run into the crop actually. So, live and learn, again, as I've talked about before, part of anything with Farming Simulator, but certainly here on FSN where we have the option, and in my case that's the option I choose, is I'm just on this farm for decades. So learning how to work a field in a way, in the most efficient way possible, and then basically, hey, that's my playbook for field 24 for harvest, let's say. It's always part of the deal, and so when you start out on any map, you're always trying to figure out those nuances. And so that's one of those that between the initial harvest and now, like, no, I'm not going to make that cut on that end, because then I can't pick up the straw, and then I run into the same problem. But this should be super nice and clean. I'll have these two passes. I'm going to pick them up and run them over, and I'm not sure, because even, let's say I get 100,000 off of here. I think I've used more straw than that since the harvest, because I was going to say this may just replenish me per what I used, but I don't think it's quite that low. Because the straw, you know, most of those things were brought up over 100,000 liters yesterday, and the straw is sitting at, oh, still over 80,000. But whoa, 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 whoa! Oh boy, oh boy! I was not even thinking it was gonna fill. Well, we didn't lose too much. Ay, ay, ay. Well, welcome to my method of harvest. Like, this happens all the time. I'm regularly like, oop, I've destroyed some of my crop. So where that is different, so I'll give myself an excuse, even though I usually tend to not do that, but the oats obviously don't have the yield that wheat does, and I knew that. I mean, I know wheat is a higher yield crop, it just tends to drop less straw. And so I was able to do those 2 rows and be fine, and so I honestly wasn't even paying attention. Well, I guess I'm too far over. Let's see, am I going to be able to pull this? Come on, really? Alright, let's circle back around. I was like, yeah, I'll just pull back out when I'm done. Well, now we're going to be pulling out the other way, which is fine. But I'm going to go this way to give me a little bit more maneuvering instead of coming in parallel, because I just wasn't far enough out for the pipe to hit the dump point, and so therefore it wasn't emptying the harvester. You can tell this little bit of slope in the hopper of the harvester, where the uphill side toward this end on the left emptied way, way faster than the right side. But luckily when it was filling, it didn't fall off to the right. So if it was really modeled with gravity and so forth, I probably would have started to lose stuff before it was full out of the hopper. But thank goodness we didn't. Alright, so I'm going to move this kind of this way because I don't want to get in the way of picking up the straw then. Alright, and so this does not take very long, clearly. So I'm not going to really worry about leaving the truck idling for a while. It shouldn't use that much fuel in between. Of course, now I'm going to have a little bit of my own problem here because I do need to put the header down. So I may have chewed up some of the straw there at the end. Hopefully not, but not much I can do about it without destroying more of the wheat. Alright, so we're going to go here. We'll just run right off the field. And I don't know that I need to empty it at this point, but I will swing around and get myself where I need to be. So I will turn this off because that will use less gas, just sitting here waiting for me to pick up the straw, and then I can line myself up later there. Alright, and everything looks connected here. So we are all set. So let's go get this job done. And we'll see how much we get off of this field and where we end up. Well, off of this part of the field. We will ultimately see what we get off the field. Whoop, whoop. This is always the fun part, and I remember this last time too, where I had to keep backing up because I kept leaving little bits. Because it's just hard to drive perfectly straight, honestly, when you're hand driving. There's always a little bit of movement. You're trying to make sure the header doesn't go off the field. And, you know, and you're getting all the crops, so even when I was coming back the other time, like at the end, you saw I had to turn to the right a bit to move over to get the couple sheaves of wheat that were sticking out. Oh, I'm getting too far to the left. Luckily, nothing left behind. So, 30,000. Might, I don't know that we'll hit 40 by the end of the row, but so we're not going to get 100,000 off of this. We're going to get maybe, now this is going to be a bit of a problem, so I'm just going to go to one side to begin with, because otherwise I'm going to have to basically make 3 passes, which I'd prefer not to do. So we're going to get, say, 82,000 off the field. This is probably not what I want to do. I think I'm going to go around this tree, and then that will give me a cleaner path through. So that's the other thing. I'd prefer to avoid, like, ooh, gee, I really want to take out some trees. Like on Seneca, which was 2 maps ago for my FSN experience, and if you start at the beginning of this series, that's the map I'm on, and then we went to Shellbrook in between, and now we're here. And no intent in my mind to go anywhere. We've got a map. I'm usually pretty good at, this is what a farmer would do. You know, they don't move every 2 or 3 years and say, hey, I'm bored of my farm, I'm gonna move across the country and go to another one and start all over. But a lot of people in FSN tend to do that just because it gives them the opportunity to play different maps or whatever. But to me, sure, there's a little bit of interest there. You're learning things, as I said, every time you're getting new fields and whatever, you're trying to figure out, how do I work this? But part of my thing as the mature simmer is, you know, I'm okay with conforming to reality and just being the same. Hey, this is where I live right now. So both moves, really, if you go back to it and we get down to the root of it, they were necessitated by other things, to some degree. I can't say the last move was. I do this every time the first time because I'm so used to coming here to get stuff, and that's my spot. Like, obviously the only time I'm going here is when I'm harvesting, and it's a ways between harvests usually, so sorry about wasting that little bit of time to go around. But we could have stayed on Shellbrook. There was probably... Well, actually, no, I guess that was part of it. I may have been the only one that was terribly interested in just... or comfortable with, I shouldn't say interested, because obviously I'm here, I was interested, and as mayor of the server, I could have just kept Shellbrook running and sat there empty and gone from there. But basically we hit a point where FSN was introducing new maps for somewhat the first time. I mean, we had a handful of maps we could do, but then I think they were introducing 12 new maps. And so the discussion kind of became, do we want to stay here, or do people want to do something new? And I was fine either way at that point, so it was really like, you know, if we're going to have a bunch of people who want to hang out here, maybe I would have stayed. But in the end, everyone opted, yeah, let's try something new, because we had been on Shellbrook for, I don't know, 15, 20 years, so it had been a while. And, hold on, I'm just trying to make sure again I don't miss lining up. I may have gone too far. Whew, I got saved. So, but then the challenge we had is we had an impasse where it was pretty much split half and half, because we had a pretty full server there. We had 6 of us on there at the time, and it was basically 3 and 3. 3 wanted to come here, and 3 wanted to go to another map. And the other map was Medicine Creek, and I didn't want to go to Medicine Creek because I'm like, that's an FS19 reboot, and I've played it, and great, it's a map, but there's nothing drawing me to it. And between looking at that and the FM who had introduced this to us, because honestly I thought Hobo's Hollow when I had seen the name, and I thought I had looked at it to do a map review for the channel at some point, but clearly I had not, or I was misremembering whatever I had done. So now I will turn this off because I'm not touching it now until the harvest is done, so that's gonna sit for a while. Alright, I was like, that's right, you can't get in on the wrong side of harvesters, but that's not accurate. So, just getting my GPS line set up, I figured you didn't need to go through all that. The other problem was, this happens again, getting all the various things I do confused and mixed up. In the VIP series, the automatic header width is not accurate, so I have to shrink it. So I kind of was like, well, I got to do all this. I'll do this off camera. And then as I was looking at the line I had created, plus the fact that I'm normally doing that in meters, and I'm like, it's in feet, but I'm like, but that's how I want to be. But yes, in that series, because I'm in England, I'm in meters. So that first thing of discomfort should have given me a clue. But then I realized when I looked at the line, I'm like, this is smaller than the header. And then I'm like, oh, that's right, it's not this header that has the problem. This one works fine with the base calculation. So I could have just kept it going and then moved the line over. It wasn't that bad, but it probably ended up being a minute and a half of me fumbling around to ultimately get there that you didn't have to endure. So you can thank me for that later. So, yeah, I know I'd been kind of talking about the moves and this and that. So we had half the people that wanted to go to Medicine Creek, and yeah, what I was saying is I had thought this was a survival map. So initially there was someone, oh, Hobo's Hollow is on the list. Did you guys take a look? And, that would be a great one. And I'm like, well, if my initial reaction was, well, no, it's a survival map, like, because I know we were allowed, I think No Man's Land has been in FSN, and, other forestry maps, which in essence would be survival maps, like Wilhelmina Forest and stuff like that. And I'm like, that type of gameplay I'm not interested in. Like, if I do it in a survival series, and I'm not gonna like eke out my existence in here in FSN in real time and then really kind of be stuck waiting for things to happen. Okay, my wheel is acting a little bit, it doesn't have enough force feedback this time, so sometimes that ends up happening with the way the game works and the way the interface works with my steering wheel. So I couldn't tell if my wheels were straight or not, because normally there's a little bit more of a tactile sensation when it's centered, and I wasn't getting that. And obviously you saw me drift over to the right a little bit because I had turned the wheel one extra rotation too far. So I need to pay attention. I'll probably still screw up because I'm talking and drive into the crop, but I need to pay attention because I'm not going to get to the end of the row before I'm full. But yeah, once I took a look at this map and drove around, I fell in love with it pretty quickly, because part of what I like is some hills, and so, this field has it, 25 has it. Part of the reason I've chosen to be at the edge of the map rather than the center, because it is a hollow, which is just a valley. Another way to say valley in the parlance of American English, in the area of the country where in theory this is supposed to be. They don't call them valleys, they call them hollers or hollows. And so, hence the name Hobo's Hollow. But that was another difference between Medicine Creek and here is, Medicine Creek has a little bit of terrain, but it's much more back into the Seneca thing of nothing substantial, where this was like, I've got mountains around, and that was kind of always my desire, was, hey, a little bit of a mountainous map would be great. Because even on Shellbrook, I found a good field for me that also had a little bit of roll to it because it was near the river. But other than that, that was, kind of a flat map. I don't want to go too far back. Otherwise, I don't know if backing into it with Beware of Straw ends up being a problem, but I'm not really wanting to find out. So yeah, that was how we ended up here. So that was a long way of explaining how this move wasn't, in essence, necessitated. Like, I could have sat on Shellbrook. But if I had sat, I almost said a less appropriate word that rhymes with that. I had sat on Shellbrook, I would have been there by myself. So, and then, hoping that others joined up. And at that point, and even still today, like if you look at the FSN servers, there's a lot of Shellbrook. So it becomes one of those challenges of, my server's no different than any other Shellbrook server, and so the likelihood of someone saying, I want to play Shellbrook, and I'm going to pick this one, is a lot less if you've got 5, 10, however many servers we have. 10 might not be over the top. There's a lot. Just like I think North Frisian Marsh, which I think is a German map, modeled after Germany. I don't know that it's a realistic map, or a real location map, where Shellbrook and Seneca were both modeled after or copied real locations. I think Shellbrook used I think it's def data, the digital topographical stuff, to actually design a specific area. I think the Ohio Seneca map was more like, yeah, this is this region of the country, and I kind of looked at stuff, but they didn't actually use topographical data to recreate it exactly. They just made a map where this is a fictitious location. So, but I'm not sure about North Frisian March, but there's a lot of those that I've seen. So, but yeah, that's kind of the added history of how we got here. And I've been here for a lot of years. It's just I was waiting for a long time for the auction to buy this land to finally bring up this plot. And it finally happened a few years ago. And then we're now still waiting for auctions to come back or some way to acquire land. So I know I've got another FM on here right now who joined just before our revamp started. Might have even been the week before, and then the auctions got shut down. But because of the requirements for FSN, where you can't buy large pieces of land to come on board, you have a $500,000 cap. So they would have been able to get neither one of the fields that I have. I was able, under the mayor cap, to get field 25, but if I was just a regular player, I would not have been able to start the way I did. And as such, he's like, I really want to expand, but he can't. So I'm thinking, because he knows it's not like he could get land anywhere else on any other server, I think he's willing to hang out here, but there is a concern as a server sponsor that, I lose somebody off the server because they get bored. I mean, there's still that reality for all of us, if this goes on too long, that we say, it's been 3 months and auctions still aren't back, and we've got no idea when they're going to be, and I'm sick of not being able to do whatever. I'm going to take a break or step away entirely. I mean, that's always the danger with any kind of quote-unquote break from any kind of a sim or anything like that, is something else may catch your interest, and suddenly you don't return to that sim that you thought was all super exciting and the one you were going to be with for forever or for a long time. That's the feeling I have with Farming Simulator, is whether I'm here in FSN or doing something, I do enjoy Farming Simulator, where I think I'll keep doing it. But there's a lot of options for that, where, other sims have more constraints or a higher learning curve, more challenge, whatever. So if you've been following things on the channel, what I seem to be settling into, not really intentionally, but it kind of became, as I reflected back over the last week, it's kind of become intentional. Like, yeah, I just might as well embrace the reality. So I had tried to do things like Planet Coaster, Planet Zoo, and frankly, I'm just not that great at them at this point. And because of that, it makes them less fun. Because, and as far as even producing content for the channel, which is not always the ultimate goal. The ultimate goal is to have fun while I'm playing, and then kind of an added bonus is, hey, while I'm having fun, I'll record a video and I'll throw it out there, and maybe someone else will get infected with the enthusiasm I have for these things and follow along with what I'm doing and be interested in the story. But if I'm not super interested in what I'm doing, it's hard to put out an interesting story, and that's kind of what I was running into. And so I found I was getting further and further between episodes on those, and that, like, where it became, hey, what haven't I done in a while? And I'd go look at my list, and I'd see those. There was more and more dread when I looked at it, of like, what am I going to do? What am I going to try? Same thing with City Skylines right now, is like, I feel for the last 3 or 4 episodes like I'm stuck. Like, I don't know exactly what to do move forward in an interesting way for me. And that again then makes it less of an interesting progression for the channel. So what it seems that I'm more actively doing is the truck sims, which is easy enough because those are, progression in the truck sims is a little episodic by its very nature. I mean, you're going from job to job to job to job, so each job is in essence a mini episode of your journey. Sometimes I'll put 2 jobs in because they're really short in one YouTube episode, but it's a very task-based sim, and so similar to Farming Simulator, I suppose, but Farming Simulators doesn't feel quite that boxed in. I mean, it's not, I'm just picking up a load and I'm hauling it from point A to point B every time, which is what you have in the trucking sims. I have to run a farm, but that can have a lot of variation. And I can also then, make a change like I did. I haven't run a dairy farm the entire time. And, eventually I may decide, I'm just not enjoying the aspect of dairy, and I'm going to sell off the cows and focus on crop or something, and then do something different. Or like what I'm doing in the VIP series that really kind of creates a really exciting dynamic that I love, of I'm working toward, in essence, quests of, hey, I've got these VIP orders that I need to fill, so that tells me what I need to do with the farm. And the reason I love that, going back to the whole mature simmer thing, is it's just, to me, another level of realism of what you would have if you were trying to run a profitable farm in the real world. Like if you were able to stumble upon a situation where you could do anything on your farm. So as opposed to a lot of farmers who are like, well, I grow soybeans and corn, and that's all I grow. I'm not going to grow wheat, I'm not going to grow barley, I'm not going to do whatever, I'm not doing any grain crops per se at all, because that's what they have the equipment for. They don't want to do more, they don't want to do whatever. Farming Simulator lets you be a little crazier and say, hey, whatever crops are available to grow on this map, I'm going to go ahead and do. And then, you set up your parameters of the VIP order manager, but then you're fulfilling what the marketplace is demanding. And obviously the soybean and corn farmer is doing the same thing, like in his area or wherever, however he can get his crops to market. So maybe there are no consumers of soybeans directly there, any factories that create things from soy. But he's got someone who will buy it and ship it to other areas of the country, and they make their money that way. But in the meantime, they just need a ton of soy to be able to ship it globally or whatever. So he's got an outlet for his crop that way. And to some degree, that is how Farming Simulator works. Like, I've got sell points on the map, these people will buy it, and I've got those grain buyers or silos on the map, on every map, and they'll buy everything. What they do with it afterwards, I don't know. I don't care. That's not part of the sim, and that wouldn't, to some degree, be part of life for a farmer in real life anyway. Although I would think most people, I know my mindset, I'd still be interested in the supply chain and like, well, what happens? Where do these go? Like, who do they sell to? And then you're like, wow, I'm part of this supply chain that gets soy milk to Japan or something. Which I doubt is what's happening from a farmer in Minnesota who's doing soy. I'm sure there's much more cost-effective ways to get soy to Japan than buying them from a farmer in Minnesota. But you understand what I'm getting at, and so the VIP order manager is much more specific than that. It's like, hey, I've got a VIP, which in my brain, as I'm playing, I'm thinking like, yeah, these are factory owners or something that are basically saying, hey, I'm gonna I need this, and then they go to those various sell points I have on my map and say, hey, I need 50,000 liters of canola this year. And then the sell point comes to us farmers and says, hey, I've got this, and I take that order, and that shows up on my VIP order manager list. So, you know, that's real interesting. And then the other thing I've jumped into, because I've always loved that, even though I stink at golfing in real life, but I've gotten back into PGA Tour 2K23 for the first time probably in a decade, and just really enjoying it. And that's, again, very episodic. Obviously, you're playing round after round after round of golf, and there's variation and there's some structure around it, but, you know, loving sports, even though I'm not watching professional golf or anything. It doesn't mean that I don't enjoy the, you know, beauty of golf courses and where they're at on the landscape, and the challenge of whacking a little ball around and trying to get it in a hole 18 times every time you play a round of golf. So right now, what was happening, because there's so much that can happen with PGA Tour as far as quantity, because it really only takes me at most probably half an hour to play around, and when I was playing at the easier levels, I was getting some things done in 15-20 minutes. So in an hour I could have an entire event done. If I qualified and whatever, I'd have 4 rounds of golf. And so, like when I'm in here in farming simulators, say for 6 hours, you know, if I devoted 6 hours to PGA Tour, I'd have 24 rounds of golf. I'd have 24 episodes of content, which is, like, even though I'm throwing them out daily, and that's why I'm doing it, because it's just so easy to manufacture episodes, because it takes, you know, 20 minutes of gameplay and then some editing after that, and, you know, you get them up there and they're there. And so just with everything that's going on, and the fact that that's on all of those, I feel I've got a cleaner sense of progression, and I know what I'm doing, and I'm not frustrated about what I'm doing like I have been with some of the other things I've tried. Those are the ones I've started to gravitate toward, like, all right, this seems to be what works, and then it's bolstered by the fact that if I look at what gets views on my channel, right now, those are the top 3 things that are getting views. You know, and once again, we'll see what happens with the PGA stuff, because that's been newer to the channel. It's really only been 2 or 3 weeks, but I'm not sure if it's because I have an episode every day. But I have seen viewership is climbing on those, because I'm sure people are finding the channel as they start to see, hey, this Mature Simmer thing keeps having new episodes, where I think a lot of folks either do how-tos, and there's more than enough content out there for that, and I'm barely able to play the game effectively. I mean, I missed five event cuts in a row. I finally made a cut in the last event that I'm currently in the middle of, so it's not like I'm that good at the game at this point, and so I don't have a lot to offer the community. And hey, here's how I play the game very, very poorly. If you want to be like me, come watch these videos. And, you know, and obviously talking about skill points and talking about fittings and whatever has less to do with skill versus, hey, this will improve things and here's how they work. But there's already tons of content out there, and I know there's nothing unique I can offer the community there. So, you know, I'm not doing that type of content. I'm just playing through. And for the people who are looking for that, what I found is there doesn't tend to be a lot of folks who do that for a long period of time. So if someone's just looking for that type of content and then doesn't want to keep finding a new channel every month or two when the person gets bored with playing through the career mode of PGA Tour, I might be a solution. So, and that may be what's starting to happen. And it's not like I'm getting tons and tons of views, but for the size of the channel, and I mean, they hit in the top 10 and stay there for a little while, where my Planet Coaster videos and things like that really don't. And that, again, is, I think there's just folks who are far, far more creative and capable in those games right now than I am. And so I either need to get to that point and then come back with something a little more compelling, or just realize I dabble in them offline and don't even waste time trying to put content out. So that's the reality of where my YouTube world is and so forth, and kind of why what's happening is happening, if you're following on a broader sense on the channel. And if you've learned anything from watching any of my episodes, I'm here. I'll babble on and keep talking until my brain says, you know what, I'm struggling for words to throw out or topics to talk about, and that's kind of where I'm getting to. But this is probably getting on to an hour-long episode at this point. But you've gotten to enjoy watching me work this field. I am going to obviously continue doing that. Again, unfortunately, I'm sorry we weren't able to do it with a little bit more daylight, but the nice thing is on Farming Simulator, nighttime isn't really nighttime. And I've kind of gotten used to almost doing all my work at night, because it's been, a year and a half of being in FSN, or, well, no, I'm actually over 2 years, I think, at this point. I think I crossed that threshold. And it just seems to be the reality of when I can play versus what servers are at. I'm tending to be playing at night, so I'm comfortable with it, but I understand for some folks it might not be as entertaining as watching stuff in the daylight. But that's why I do something like the VIP series, the single player stuff, that I can control the environment. So if you're looking for daytime farming, the VIP series is probably the one you want to check out. The FSN stuff is going to be whatever it is when I can get on. So can't control that, but again, it's not like I'm playing Truck Simulator and driving in the dark all the time and there's scenery to see. Like, once you've seen this farm in the daytime, you've kind of seen the farm. It doesn't really change much, so I think people are more forgiving with Farming Simulator in taking a look at it at night. But I'm going to get this first load, figure out where I'm taking it, and keep working this field, and then pick up this straw, and I will... I don't have another episode for that, so what I'll probably do is I will wait. So I'll say, hey, I'll see you in a little bit, and I'll fill you in on what the situation is. You'll see what the dollars are, and then we'll also see what our straw situation is. So I'll see you in a bit. Alright, well, I'm back on here. I thought I was recording, and instead I found out I had turned on the wrong setting in my software, so I don't have what I covered. So I finished the harvest. Basically, I had to run and get fuel. I was totally low. I think it was like $1,397 to get that fuel. Came back, got the header, parked it there, and then took the last load of wheat over to a location. And that's the most irritating thing and hard to go through. So you can see that group of really thin silos. There's a sell spot there for grain, and that's where I was selling, which I lost a little bit by not taking it further, but it's right there. Most importantly, through that tree line, there's no fence, so you can kind of see my tracks going through. And so what I said is, the benefit I'm going to have once I get those pieces of land to build my yard that I'm looking for is I can then line up my silo in a way that when I'm selling, I can just pull straight through the trees, pull up to the silo, pull straight through the trees, and go sell, is a possibility that I'm certainly looking at. So, I'm going to have to take a look here, because this may, yeah. I don't understand, given that this was on the line, but, so this is the thing. It's like just wide enough. So this is going to be kind of an unfun situation, is how I'll describe it, because I can't just lock in and go, because this was done on a GPS line, but why it dumped that way in a way that this can't pick up, kind of irritating, but it is what it is. I mean, the pickup's head is the pickup head. So yeah, there's some possibility there of doing something. So I also had then finished taking another load of straw over, because I had the partial load from when I had done the bottom 2 rows that were kind of the header rows. So I had several tens of thousands in there for that. I think it was around 32,000. So once I grabbed another 18 or so off this row, I filled it up. That means I have 100,000 over there, and I'm going to go ahead and keep this up. But I also then parked the truck kind of over by the dairy, because I learned last time, with further learning, parking over here on the side, I was in the way picking up the straw and running it back and forth. So hopefully this will all work out well. But I'm going to go ahead and get this done, and then once this is complete, I'll come back one last time, let you know what the straw draw is off the field, and that will end the episode. So I'll see you in a bit. Just dropped off the last load, 2126,630. So after taking into account what was consumed, which basically was, that's the nice part of math, like you can figure things out. So there were 4 loads that I've moved into the barn from when I harvested. Now I had to go obviously look at some of my old episodes to see where my straw amount was. So the straw harvest off of 24 with oats was 1157984. The straw harvest off of the field with wheat, 1206246, for a difference of 48,282 or something like that, I believe. Might be 62, but still, not even one trailer full over that entire field. So in the end, it probably ultimately doesn't honestly matter what I plant. But the reality is, were a few breaks here and there. I mean, there was certainly 2-3 hours where I had to go run some errands and stuff, and also synced up the server and this and that. So you can't really do a, hey, the episode started at this time, it ended at this time, this is how many hours. It was less than that, but probably still 4 or 5 hours of work to harvest and collect, and then collect the straw. So not minimal, but storms rolling in. Not that it would have mattered unless they rolled in when I was cutting the wheat, but that was certainly one thing I did check immediately when I saw it was cloudy, was do I have rain coming in, and I saw till like 1300 that there wasn't any. And yeah, this looks like it's rolling in at like 1600, but that icon has appeared throughout the day that rain is coming. But once I had harvested, I could have collected the straw and everything would have been fine. So at this point, we've got 1 million in hay, 1 million in straw, and silage doesn't show up because it's not in a storage silo, but silage is getting low, 247. So we've got a job coming up soon of running through this field again. So definitely a lot of work to get things up there, but more importantly, I guess the big thing on the straw side is I needed 4 loads of 59,400 since I took straw off this field last year. So the good news is you know, this 2 million really can last me for quite some time. I won't have to harvest and pick up straw next time. Now I've got a pretty good bead on how things are going. And more importantly, once I get the cow barn, if I can keep it operating, I'm only using 3,500 in total of material instead of 4,500, so that slowdown is going to save me a couple hundred an hour over 24 hours. You know, that's 4,800 or whatever it is. So, you know, over 10 days, I've got like almost a full trailer full that I've saved. So over time, like, that stuff starts to add up and just extends things a little bit more. So that is what we've got here. Hope you've enjoyed the episode. If you have, please drop a like so that the video gets shared out and other people can see it. And if you haven't subscribed yet, what you waiting for? Like, there's a lot of stuff here for you to look at, so please subscribe. But yes, obviously, if you can, it would be greatly appreciated. And I'll see you next time.